Hey, welcome to another episode of the Virtual Engagement Ideas Summit, and we have a very special guest today. We met for the first time on this call. This is Chris Schuler, the co-owner. He's half of the name of Bass Schuler, so that's his name matches the sign behind his head. I have known Chris for many, many years. I was a big fan of his band in the early '90s, and maybe that's how we first met. I saw him play bass on stage in a club in Chicago. But we have both worked in NACA and in APCA and in higher ed and with schools across the country for many years. In fact, we partnered up for 20 of those years as artist and agent. And now we are colleagues in this crazy world of higher ed. How you doing, Chris?
I'm good, man. Am I looking the right way?
You look
Oh,
great.
all right, thanks, man. So, yes, we have known each other since 1997. I don't want to age you too badly, but I
Yeah.
mean, this face doesn't age just like yours. So we're just
Well,
two
in
handsome 30-year-olds.
97, I was the prodigy 4-year-old at NACA, you know? I was
Right?
the, I was doing the Irish dance. Like, remember that showcase? I don't. I've seen video of it. I was an Irish clogger.
It could have been. Maybe that's what it was. Yeah, you started. I think you started the whole Irish dance craze.
I made Irish dance popular, single-handedly.
We all know
Hey,
your dance moves, Jason, are
I
Irish
I got
dance.
some dance moves. In fact, so Chris and I at one point in our lives together were spent a lot of time as roommates at many conferences.
Yes,
And we would and then we got to a point where we're like, you know what? We don't need to be roommates anymore.
we don't.
I want my own space. He keeps
I do.
wearing the
You
bathroom.
snore. You
Yeah,
snore, man.
apparently,
Definitely.
apparently.
I know.
Hey, how's the pandemic for you, Chris?
Oh, it's been so great. Just
Yeah.
It's been I mean, Jason, like you and I have known each other for 20 years or so.
Yeah.
And the thing about the college market is it's a very stable working environment.
Yeah.
It's a very stable, and so for so long as you were doing your thing and then staying connected to doing your stuff, it kind of, I don't want to say it ran itself, but it was a pretty consistent market. Budgets were relatively similar. The pricing stayed really much the same. A lot of the activities people were still there. So you built those connections, and it was just conversations with friends, and
Yeah.
then and scheduling shows. And we've never seen anything, even when the market, in recessions,
Yeah.
community colleges would come up because the recession would drop and community colleges would fill up, and then those
Right.
schools would be booking, and
Yeah.
then vice versa. So there's always been this balance in the market that's always allowed for colleges to still be sustainable and for the college market for performers to work. We've never seen anything like this pandemic. So
Yeah.
when March hit, um, all of a sudden everything was canceled,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it was a real kick in the butt because we had to sort of say, how do we manage this?
Right.
What do we do? Because you
Yeah.
and I aren't qualified to really do anything else. I don't know if you know that.
Right. Yeah. Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to those other things you're qualified to do in a minute. But what you and your acts were able to do is really make a decision to pivot and learn how to do what they do virtually.
Right.
And these interviews and these connections, these conversations I'm having are really designed to give some hope to the advisors who maybe have not yet explored this as a possibility, and also to inspire folks to take chances. So I'm sure that perhaps you tried some things that didn't work. Were there some things that you tried early on that didn't work, and some things that you tried that have really been very successful over the last few months?
Well, there has some been successes, and I'm obviously some things that maybe we thought would fly but didn't. But I think ultimately, as soon as this hit and we realized, well, we had March shows that were suddenly being canceled, so we had to have opportunities to say, can we salvage this now? What do we do? And the artists were the first to come up to sort of say, this is what I think I can do in regards to my show to make it work virtually,
Yeah.
to at least give them something for these students that are thrown into a tailspin for this in the spring. And Daniel Martin, is a magician. He just sort of didn't want to just do his normal show. So I think the virtual shows had to evolve into something that you can do virtually that isn't exactly what you would do on stage. I don't
Yeah.
think that those two always align. So, Dan said, I don't want to just do my magic show because they could just watch my promo video. Why would they pay that? So we
Yeah.
needed something that was interactive and fun, and something to take their mind off of what they were experiencing at that point. So
Yeah.
he would do magic shows, and then he would teach you how to do the trick. So it was an
Oh, cool.
educational aspect of it. So
Sure.
he just, all the acts sort of have to look to find ways of how can I do what I do, but do it in a unique and different way, so that when they do want me back, they're not going to see what they just saw virtually. They're going to
Right.
get a
Right.
whole new experience.
I mean, you're finding that with the acts that are succeeding, they're adding another element that's more engaging. So it's not a one-way performance.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
It's hard to, with the virtual programs, to really engage one-on-one or like you could with an audience, because you can have a live audience and you can kind of pick and choose people, or you can hear that rush of the larger audience,
Yeah.
cheering and stuff. But with virtual shows, you can't just open the door to however many people are there through a Zoom call or whatever. That creates a bit of confusion and havoc, and
Yeah.
so you have to find other ways to engage students through the
Right.
virtual realms that
Yeah.
are allowed.
Yeah. I'm glad to see that you guys embraced it, and that you've acts that have been very successful. What in particular has been one of your favorites? You have a poetry thing that's going on.
Right. So, that's another thing. We sort of had, as we sort of, did, crisis management to sort of evolve everything to virtual, to save live shows to virtual for the spring. Then we looked at it and said, well, when's this really going to end? And if we realized that this really wasn't going to be over in the summer and we would be back to normal in the fall. So then we realized that there's going to be this hybrid programming happening of live possibly and virtual still into the fall.
Yeah.
And we said, well, how do we grow from there? How do we come up with new things and ways to engage people? So we have 5 awesome poets on our roster that collaboratively came up with the America's Best College Poet to find a way to do slam poetry and an interactive virtual show that a school can run on their own, pick their winner, and then for an entry fee, they can be their school's representative, and they can be in a poetry slam competition with schools all across the entire United States. And then ultimately we'll have a winner that will get chosen by the students that are watching.
Oh, wow.
And that student will win $1,500.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I should enroll in school, and I should start working on my slam poetry, right?
You should, right? Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about baking bread.
Well, I had to move back home, and you've been in my house. I'm still in the same place I've been for a long time. It's not a very big place, so we're very communally attached to each other. Both my sons, I have a 14-year-old and a 10-year-old that were at home, so it was all 4 of us in the house together trying to do schoolwork. I'm trying to work at the table, and I just needed something else to sort of segregate myself, periodically from the bad news emails that were kind of coming in. Cancel. So a friend of mine had some, hey, I've got some sourdough starter. Do you want some? I'm like, yeah, I'll try baking sourdough. It seems like a fun thing to try to do. Yeah. So they gave me some starter, and then I started making some bread, and they were pretty terrible right when I started, I'll admit. But they definitely have gotten better. But I'm still doing it. I'm still baking.
Right. No, I mean the photographs online have been awesome. But the reason that I ask you about that is that you specifically added something into your life that was a creative element that was not work related, and I think that's a really important thing that you did, because it brought you some joy. Right. And I think I've talked about this with a couple other advisors, is how important it is that we recommend to other people to add that creative element in their day.
Right. Bread is
bread.
Yeah, bread is it's to me, it's like learning an instrument.
Okay.
You can no 2 loaves are ever going to be the same, and even though you might do the process with the exact same amount of ingredients down to the gram, and so many different things, elements can change how it ultimately ends up, and then it's flummoxing and just perplexing as to why it doesn't look like the other one and why it's different. Right. And to where like, and what's the good news is you can just, even if it looks ugly, it still tastes good. So I can.
Right. And are you strictly sourdough? Are you strictly a sourdough guy?
Well, sourdough, I mean, sourdough is really, it's just country bread, white bread basically, but they're using sourdough, which is as your starter. So you're using a starter versus yeast, which has a different fermentation process. Okay. So it may not taste sour or have a sourdough taste. It really depends on your starter and when you use it, on whether or not it's going to have a sour taste to it or not. So it's a little bit of a misnomer, but I've done
You've
different
frozen.
types. You can put different stuff in there, such as, I've done an olive loaf. I did a bunch of others. I did jalapeno and cheddar last week. So you can put whatever in there. But that's been kind of my thing. I've done some other stuff, but then then my wife goes, I'm a little sick of sourdough, so maybe you could make some cinnamon rolls. I'm like, okay, let's try that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the yeast starter, and you said an azure starter? Is that what the other word you used?
No, so the sourdough starter is basically water and flour
Yeah.
that ferments over time. So you kind of keep feeding it, and it's basically like one of those little digipets. After what, you have to consistently feed your starter every day to keep all the bacteria and all the things that are in the starter alive.
Right.
So you have to keep feeding it. So I've been feeding it flour since March, so it's alive. And there's starters that have been consistently fed that go back 100 years.
No kidding. Okay.
Yeah.
And a traditional yeast, you don't need to keep it alive.
No, yeast is just the little packet or whatever. If you're going to make
Right.
it, that's just already kind of dried. You just dump it in there and it gets the water and it activates and goes up. This is more of a natural fermentation process of keeping the starter going. And it's a little bit of it gives it a different flavor and different taste, because your starter flavors, depending upon the bacteria and stuff that are in there, are very definitive or based upon your environment in your house and a lot of other different things. So it's kind
Okay,
of each
so
one's a little unique.
yeast is Netflix.
Yeah.
The starter, the sourdough starter,
Yeah.
is higher education and virtual
It's
programs, right?
all
Because
right.
right. Go explain.
I don't know where you're going, but just keep going there.
No,
And
no, no. The yeast starter, it's the packet. You know exactly what you're getting. You know it's going to start here. It's going to end here. You
Mhm.
know that you can log in and you can get this.
Yeah.
Student activities, higher ed, student affairs, student leadership, virtual programming is something that we're feeding over years, and it's evolving, and sometimes it looks this way and sometimes it looks this way, and you're choosing that because it's more exciting.
Yeah, I have an obligation to this little jar of bubbly dough to make sure that it keeps working, but it does evolve and change, and sometimes it's really stinky, and sometimes it
Yeah.
smells really sweet, and like a lot of things.
Right, like a lot of
Um,
things, like no, seriously, you have to care for that little thing of yeast and feed it and make sure it works. And sometimes it stinks, like the trajectory of all of the artists and agencies' careers over the last, right. So
yeah,
you see how I've made the connection to bread.
right.
Yeah, good. Yes.
Right. I have a lot of little sourdough starters on my roster that we're consistently feeding and trying to keep fed, and some do better than
See, that's
others
great.
for sure. But yeah, it's true. We've got
Do
a
you,
lot of them. Yeah.
do you book any yeast? You don't, because that's Netflix. And I'm nothing against yeast. Yeast is delicious.
It works. It
Yeah,
does its job, man. It works fine, man. I have no issues with it.
but not nearly as exciting as sourdough.
Right. I'll mail you one, Jason. You want me to send you some? I'll send you some bread.
Like bread or the starter?
No, starter's easy. Everybody makes a big deal out of it. It's not that big a deal. Anybody will give you starter, because when you start making starter, it's perpetually, you're constantly throwing it away.
Yeah. Okay.
So anybody, if you go into your favorite bakery, wherever it is that you buy your bread, and if they're baking it there, say, can I have some of your starter? They will give you some, because they throw away some of it every day.
Oh, okay.
And they'll give you a little bit. You only need a tablespoon to get started, and then that's it.
I would accept a loaf in the mail from you.
All right.
That would be amazing. But the danger is that I might love it, and then how many loaves have you made since you started?
I don't know, probably 50 or 60, I bet.
Wow.
I've given away probably
how many
10
has
of them.
your family eaten? How many has your family eaten?
Almost all of it.
Oh gosh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, you do have two growing boys.
Yes, I do, and it goes fast. But yeah, you gotta have toast, and then you gotta have to have avocado toast. Then you have to have bread at dinner, because you gotta soak up stuff and push it around with bread. So
Yeah. Now here's a question. Have you had to create a separate budget just for butter?
yeah, it's the flour that kills you, man. The butter's not
Oh,
so much, because I don't use any butter for buttering on my bread, but
I'm talking about toast.
toast. Yeah, no, that's okay. It's the flour that I go through. I've probably gone through 40, 50 pounds of flour.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Have you found some favorite flours?
King Arthur is really good, and you can get a 12-pound bag of all-purpose at Costco for like it's a pretty good deal.
That's good. That's good information to know.
That's where I get it.
But you could get flour. You can get all kinds of different flour. You can get
Yeah.
flour from Europe. You can get flour from South America.
Oh, that's a rabbit hole, man, because then you can find a local guy that's,
Yeah.
grinding his own, and then
Yeah.
you'll pay 4 times as much, but I haven't gotten that
Right.
crazy yet.
Right.
Close.
Well,
I'm close, but not yet.
this has been an informative conversation, Chris Schuler.
Well, who wants to hear about, booking shows and such? It's
Nobody.
go online and just go down, look up
Yeah.
baking sourdough, man. You'll have thousands of videos on YouTube. That's way more.
What has been your motivational wake up in the morning song?
I don't know. I don't, it's weird. I like it kind of quiet in the morning, honestly. I don't really need the music to get me up and running.
Right.
Here's my guilty secret is that I listen to really bad techno dance junk all day long off of Spotify, because it's got a beat and it's got an intensity to it,
Yeah.
but I completely not hear it. It's simultaneously. So I'm not invested in individual songs. It can just be a running soundtrack of musical dance noise that runs behind me all day long. And
Is it with headphones or the whole house?
I got speakers. Yeah, I'll have them on in the office or whatever. Or if I'm at home, I'll have them on in the in the kitchen to play some stupid dance music while I'm folding my bread.
Right, but it's like having a soundtrack. You've got a soundtrack to your day.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you definitely I have to have some sort of music going on.
Right.
I don't want to.
Right. Have you been playing any instruments over the last few months?
Yeah, well, my son started playing guitar, so he does School of Rock, so he's 14, so he's still playing.
Cool.
And so it's been fun for me to kind of play along with him and get my bass out and have him work on some new songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've been rocking out the bass. What's one of the songs you guys have been working on?
Well, they do different. School of Rock does different themes, so they actually had a Led Zeppelin theme. So that was sort of interesting because he didn't really know anything at all about Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
And I'd asked him what song he's on. He's like, something about change. I said, that's too vague. I don't know what it is. I'm going through every Led Zeppelin song I could think of. And at the very end, I go, is it No Quarter?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the song. I was like, oh my God. So that's what I, dealing with him. So he's learning about music and he's being forced to learn songs, so to speak. Bands that he would normally never choose. So right now they're doing songs this summer. So he's going to do from a Childish Gambino song to an old, Bangles tune or whatever. Cool. A little bit of a mix of everything.
Yeah, it's cool stuff.
Yeah.
Can you sing a Zeppelin song?
Oh God, no. Dude, you've seen me live. They don't even put a microphone in front of me. The fact that I even have one here is scary to most.
Last time you sang karaoke, what song did you do?
I didn't. I'd never sing karaoke. I never do. I happily will watch it, but I will not get up and sing it. I can't do it, dude. What? It's just I can't sing.
What is there?
Get the timing down.
What about your favorite? Okay, let's go back to senior year of high school. Right? Think of your favorite band, and lyrically, is there a song from the senior year of high school that you know the first verse of the song?
Let's see. High school was, unfortunately, that was 1986 was my senior year. So we were in the depths of metal and I hated all of that. So I listened to a lot of Boston and some Pink Floyd and some classic rock, but it wasn't really classic then. I was classic, but so yeah, I would listen to that. I remember, but in college we started getting into things like Public Enemy and things like that, which I was a totally new style of stuff. Right. But I can't rap either, because then I would turn it into like stupid stuff like bass. How low can you go? Death row, what a brother know. Once again, back is the incredible rhyme animal. An incredible Public Enemy #1 50 said freeze, and I got numb. See, that is about the best that I could do. But you have to say like Weird Al Yankovic, so it just sounds more. You sound like an idiot. That's why I don't do it.
All I needed. I got what I wanted. I got it. You did it. You sang for me. That was the best.
Yeah, that's all I could do for you, man.
That was the best. That was great. Chris, thanks so much for sharing your time today. Thanks for all the cool ideas about baking bread at home, about being creative, about adding something fun into your life. Thanks for being part of the virtual community, moving the ball down the field,
For
and
sure.
thanks so much for all the hard work you're doing with all the schools. Have a
Yeah,
great,
I'm happy to do it. Anytime you need anything, you know where to find me, man.
yeah, have a great evening. See you later.